Debriefing session for the baseline lesson that covers InTAS Standard 1, which is about student development. This specific class was about rules. Specifically, the class has been learning about, they've been designing their own community as a review for what they learned earlier in the unit. So I tried to design a lesson where students review rules, community, citizens, and then have them show me.
Make some rules for their own community. Okay, so what do you think went well?
I think the overall plan of the lesson was actually adequate for what we were doing for a review lesson. I think we started off the class on the floor, get everybody in a comfortable position, and then I think the little mini lesson, which didn't turn out to be a mini lesson, that's later on, but had a lot of visuals. It was simple, which helps scaffold for all students. Those from advanced students to lower students, we created a good discussion through turn and share, and a lot of students were volunteering, giving me lots of good answers. So I think I actually got a really good vibe on which students did understand the subject and which students were just making stuff up and didn't truly understand it. Even though this isn't like number data, it taught me a lot about each student. I think the strategy of working with a small group of struggling students and then letting the other students be in pairs and work more autonomous did work for the most part, minus a couple hiccups. The students working independently seemed to be working pretty well. I don't think I gave them the attention they needed. However, I think they worked well. I think they understood the task pretty clearly, and I think they worked hard at the task and showed their understanding, which was the whole goal of reviewing the lesson.
Right. 100%. You know, overall, I think things went well, and this was a baseline lesson, so it's kind of like you can see what worked, especially for this group of kids. Every class is different. But I want to go over some things that you did well first.
Okay.
So I observed recalling previous learning, like community with all of the keywords, employment, demographics. Those were all really helpful for them. You could tell that they already understood it. You had them read the essential question, which is great. That's a great way to open the lesson. And you did reviewing with turning and talking instead of just talking to the kids yourself. So that gets them more engaged. Used attention getters like eyes on me. I liked the spot the truth activity. It was a great warm up and it got them moving and engaged. You also did whole group behavior management with adding the fuzzies to the jar when you saw everyone was on task, so that's great. They received that really well, and they respond well to that. And the pictures that you used really helped guide their learning, and they were connected. So you didn't just tell them and have the picture up. You put the picture up, got their minds going, and then you kind of guided their learning, but you didn't give them the answers. If that made sense. So that was great. You gave time reminders, like I'm setting the timer for X amount of minutes. You set it. It was a visual for them to see how much time they had left. That's great. For the students that weren't able to finish, you told them you can finish during this time tomorrow. So that's great. They all kind of know when they can finish, what they need to work on. They still understood it. It's the end of the day, so it's hard to get things rolling at the end of the day, honestly. Yeah, so I think in terms of it being a review, it was great.
Okay.
Some things that we could work on, so some areas of growth. I feel like the review was quite lengthy. So because it was a review, you don't need to spend that much time reviewing it. But I could tell that you were like into it. You're like, okay, and you were like feeding off of the energy. The kids liked it. They were having fun. But it's better to spend more time on the actual work than the review. But if it was new material, then that would be an adequate amount of time. But I think for review, it just kind of sucked up all of your lesson. So yeah, let's save the time for new material or for the learning activity. There was also kind of a focus on some questions like, why is a town a community? Or why is swimming not helping the community? If most of them showed that they found the truth already, then you don't need to spend the time on that. but it's good to have them elaborate on their answers, but maybe use that time elsewhere. Yeah, so you don't have to check so thoroughly for those things. If you do a quick, like, formative, okay, they're all putting their thumbs up and that's right, good, we can just move on. Because they will sit there all day and be like, and they want to just share. But if you can tell that they don't understand, then it is important to do that kind of check.
Right.
Or ask a student to elaborate more that doesn't understand it. I mean, I'm nitpicking now. So one thing on the visual, one thing that I like to do for them is if they have to do something, for example, the line that was in the box, it wasn't on their worksheet, and you were like, I need you to draw this line, which is great. You could just make that line a different color.
Okay.
And then that's a good visual for those kids, because if they're just looking at that, they might not notice that difference on their
I thought it was the box, probably.
Right, or who knows? At the end of the day, they might just be like, oh, what did you say again? But if you make it a different color, they'll be like, oh, that's right.
Right.
So little things like that actually make a big difference, and they save you time. Now, in terms of things that happened, like the students that were on the carpet with you, that's pretty much to be expected. Those students, that's why they're there. They need that extra help. A kid spilled a water bottle. It happens. You just tell them, like, go get paper towels from the bathroom. That's all you gotta do next time. He spills his water bottle a lot, so don't worry, it happens all the time. At least he didn't spill it on his paper, and then we had to print a new one. So it's okay. Those are like normal, everyday things. They're kids. You just tell him, go get paper towels from the bathroom, and that's his responsibility to clean that up. As for other students that maybe didn't like how things were going or were feeling frustrated earlier in the day, they were also feeling frustrated. And I mean, in several other classes that day. So, I mean, that's normal. What you could do with that particular student next time is, I noticed that you're feeling frustrated. Do you need to take a break? Do you need to take a walk? Would you prefer to work on this alone in the hallway? Sometimes they just need space. Sometimes they just need, like, to take a breather by themselves. Sometimes you can just be a little firm, like, okay, you move over there. Because at that point, I think that student just wanted to complain. Right. They just didn't like how the day was going. So there was going to be nothing that, you know, they weren't going to be happy no matter what. But all in all, I think it was a great review. Stick to the things that you did really well. And the big takeaway from this is just use the time for the activity, not so much
I felt
the lesson. Unless you're doing new material. Let's say that was, you were introducing new material, totally fine to do that amount of time. But if you can tell, that's why we do formatives. If you can tell that they got it, just move on to the next thing.
I noticed 75% of the mini lesson that it was already too much time.
Right. You look at the clock and you're like, oh my gosh.
And I knew, we talked about it before, right? And we planned for it.
Right.
You discussed, I need to condense that. And then I think the lesson amount was enough. I just let way too many questions pass. I talked about unnecessary things like you talked about. And I think the one thing I learned most was that because of exactly what you said, I didn't give them enough time to work on the actual activity. When those random things did happen, it gave me way less time to handle it. So when these things were happening, I was 5 minutes from the end of the lesson, which is when you would pull someone aside and talk to them. I didn't have that time to do it. So I've learned that if I have this extra 10 minutes of activity time, I can see all the other students. Something crazy happens, I can start dealing with them. And then there's still 5 minutes left, you know? And
then you can close up. You could do like another quick review. You can ask them what's something that you learned. I mean, you could do any sort of extension too. And that's the problem that every teacher has. It doesn't matter how long you've been teaching. I run into things where I'm like, oh my gosh, I spent too much time on this. So that's normal. Like everything that happened in your lesson, don't beat yourself up about it because it's absolutely normal. Kids spill their water bottles. Kids get frustrated. Kids get annoyed. Kids try to be funny and make jokes. I mean, that's just, it's going to be like that every day. So I think that was a very realistic lesson. So it's perfect for baseline. And now you kind of know some things you want to do moving forward with time management. I think it couldn't have gone better, honestly, because it's a great, like, it's realistic for you. And now you have some expectations, like realistic expectations that you can meet. And moving forward, I think, now you know. So I think everything went well.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.